50.
Welcome back to another episode of the FNtasia podcast. We are on episode 50-something. I don't even know. We're in the 50s somewhere. And today we have a lot to talk about because not only do we have three amazing gentlemen with me, I'm joined by the one and only Teddy Moon, the big dog Reese Hub, and making a rare appearance on the podcast nowadays, the one and only original ginger of the podcast, Coach Harry. We have had blockbuster moves and changes take place. Last week, we highlighted a lot of what was going on in NA. This week, EU got a bomb. Cammy and Setty are no longer. The era is officially over. It's something we've spent a lot of time talking about on this podcast. Something that some people have been praying and wishing for on this podcast. And so I want to start off by just getting our initial thought. Where were you when the news dropped? How do you feel about this news? And will you remember this day for the rest of your life? Harry.
I can't remember where I was. I'm gonna be honest, but it's a long time coming. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think we've all seen the slow decline of Cammy and Setty playing together from duos last year into this year, where they've only got one top three in it was like 7 FNCSs, which for a team for the longest time was the most consistent, the team you always saw in a top 5, the team you expected to have just 12 out of 12 end games, the best meta read, the best everything too. Just what it looked like was lack of firepower and just nothing really happening. It was just a good thing for everyone involved. I feel like it was just they need to get some fresh ideas, some new faces within their trios or whatever game mode it goes into maybe next year. But I think it's just good for everyone involved for sure.
Yeah, I think like social credit was at an all-time low. You've got to think prior to this, like, you know, you go on Twitter, there's like 4 accounts who are just posting all about the same teams. You mute them all, and then you see nothing about Fortnite ever again, right? However, in that time before you click mute on all of them, there's never a Setty, a Cammy clip. There's never like, you never see like
Nothing.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a bang from them. There's no hype. There's nothing. It was just like, you know, the last 2 years has generally just been like slow and unfortunate. And I feel like everyone's kind of just sat and been like, when's this going to end? Because you guys need to come back. You guys need to pop off. So I was really sad to see the boys split. You know, we've been fans for a long time, like everyone involved. But it was about time. Come on, it was about time. Like, I want to see these players succeed, and they were not succeeding together. So obviously, like, Eval was yesterday. Both teams looked a little promising, purely based off results. Not actually watched the matches from their POVs yet to see what they look like. But, you know, both won a game in Eval with potentially new teams. Do we know if they've stuck or not?
I didn't
think
see
they're
anything
sticking
about
for
them
now.
splitting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's okay for now.
I'm reminded of the famous Stoic phrase, "No man ever stands in the same river twice." Maybe in Fortnite.
Unless you're 90% of Fortnite pros.
And in Fortnite, it's no team ever jumps off the same battle bus 2 times.
Wow.
And you know,
Bring it to your
profound.
One of the great duos, one of the great teams we've ever had in this game. So it's sad to see them end, but it seems like it was time. They were due.
For sure. I think a funny thing about this whole conversation as well is I was just thinking then, it's like Chari never gets involved in these conversations, because I know obviously Cammy Setty have the long history together and everything, but it's like it's not just them two who didn't perform, right? It was the whole trio as a whole. Like, it was just how they played. It felt like, you know, you're adding Chari to the mix. You're trying to get a bit more firepower. You're trying to get the like the kills when things are scuffed, all these type of things. But it just felt like nothing changed going into this year. They were still not that good off spawn, even though they added someone who was a good fighter. They still were not that good at getting refreshes when games were scuffed. It felt like there was just no progression between them. But as you said, Reese, it's looking good for now from them splitting, both getting wins and evals with their new trio, Setty, Yapko, Panzer, and Ijop, Jari, and Cammy. So hopefully it continues that way, and hopefully we see them both at globals.
Which new trio do we have more faith in?
It's interesting because it's like Setty,
We're not doing this. We're not doing. I'm not letting today, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of this podcast. I'm not letting the guy who was running the Setty is finished train. He was the captain of the train. He was steering that ship all year long. I'm not letting this guy come in here today and be like, actually, I don't know, you know.
No. Hey, let me finish my point. Let me finish.
Honest truth.
Yeah, the honest truth. If you let me finish my point, I'll give you my honest truth. Now, the reason what I was gonna say is just from name value as in the switches between the two, iDrop getting added to the trio, and obviously Yapko and Panzer being with Setty. If you're just going based off name power alone, obviously iDrop, in my opinion, not just name power, but in general, is an upgrade on Setty. But if you go off placements, obviously Yapko, how he did in NA, and Panzer, how he's done in the past 2 grands, as a trio, they are more consistent. As in, they have had better results over the past 2 seasons. Obviously, because Cammy and Cherry have not had good results over the past 2 seasons. Who I think I have more faith in is obviously Cammy, iDrop, and Cherry. I'm not going to deny that. That's not, like, there's no hiding that. I know for a fact. I think their situation in grands is going to be a lot better, a lot more clear. I think as players, I think Cammy, in my opinion, should have been the IGL for the longest time, and he started this season as, and I hope adding iDrop to the mix kind of continues that way. And I think iDrop's just the perfect player for what Cammy and Cherry need. I think he's got that little bit of firepower. He's a great fighter. You saw it with Sky and Scroll, how good of a fighter he was. And they add on top of the fact that he's experienced and he's just got a depth of knowledge that he can take over when it's needed. It's not like now you've just got two players who are just fighters and Cammy having to lead everything. You've got someone who can take over as well. I feel like it's the perfect player for what they needed. And obviously I'm going to have more faith in them. But I wouldn't be surprised if Setty, Yapko, and Panzer do well as well.
Yeah, I think like looking at the composition of like the way that Cammy and Setty played, whether it was trios or duos, I always find it interesting that I could never really strike definitive lines between who was contributing what. Like, obviously, you could say this player, you know, you said Setty was tarping vast majority of the time, Cammy took over, and you could see like general roles and stuff that they would play, but without actually like speaking to them, being involved, or like really doing deep analysis, there wasn't like a huge difference between this player does that, like clear defined. Like if you watch a lot of other players, you're like, oh, you know who's fragging, you know who's going crazy, you know, this person, you know, they always seemed relatively even on everything. So it was hard to figure out who contributes to the success as much and who contributes to the failure as much as well, right? Now, again, if you're more locked in and you're looked in, you might have a better, you know, obviously Harry has a lot of opinions on who contributed to the failures of the teams, of course. But now what I really am interested in seeing is now that, say, Setty and Cammy are no longer playing, like, how do they look when playing with completely different teams in completely different roles, or in completely different roles. So say now Setty playing with not Cammy in his tarp whatsoever. You have 2 other players, you know, Panzer and who do we say was again a totally blank just sitting there. Panzer and Yapko. Like, you know, now like what does that composition look like? So what does like Setty as an IGL or tarp or however he's going to play that? How does he end up contributing to that team more? And how do those teams work off of him? Same with the way that, you know, Cammy potentially leading more, making calls with iDrop and Harry in as well. Like, I'm really interested now to see going forward, what do those teams actually look like, their play styles and what they bring to it? Because I feel like now you have, you know, players on one who bring a lot of one element, like, you know, say Setty, you know, you're going to, the beautiful Setty tarps in an end game, like there's almost on there. And now you're like, okay, what can guys like Panzer do in the back of that, hitting max bangs and stuff, in comparison to like, you know what Harry and Cammy were going to do in the back of it?
I think it's really interesting. You know, sort of what you said there towards the end of when you're looking at the contributions of each individual and sort of where that leads to, because I think one thing that is important, we kind of jumped the gun on the conversation a bit here, but I want to actually take us a step back, because I want to look at sort of what led us to this point, because this is really monumental, right? And like there is a case study in this, in that Cammy and Setty for the longest time, you know, long-standing teammates, like so many years now. There's people who have come and left in the competitive Fortnite space who will know Cammy and Setty as teammates, right? What sort of led to this split? Because there's always been rumors and there's always been things, and we can look at the results, but then they always kept staying together and sort of like theorizing there versus like, you know, now where does this lead to? What are the implications of the decisions they've made in terms of their teammates? And then sort of like what you're saying at the end there, Reese, in terms of play style. Harry, as someone who has obviously been very opinionated in them for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
we can make all the jokes about it. Getting serious for a second, like for you, what do you look at as like the catalyst for why this decision obviously finally had to be made now, but what has been going wrong for them over the past year and a half, 2 years?
I think what's kind of happened with Fortnite is it's gone from a game where you'd see whoever was the most consistent and had the most consistent strategy would do the best. Obviously, we had their global strategy, we had many other Surge plays they had, and they were just so consistent at getting Surge, and then were just very consistent in endgames with their mat efficiency that it meant that in duos especially, they would just get deeper into endgames even if they didn't get refreshes, right? This was just kind of the nature of it. But as obviously we've seen the era of Peterbot, but just more aggressive teams being able to fight with Bullet Drop getting added in last chapter, it felt like when games got scuffed, they couldn't recover. And that was the biggest thing. And as teams are getting better and teams are getting more consistent and teams are learning how to play Surge, and obviously we talk about the Surge trading and all that sort of stuff, and now everyone's getting to a similar level for Surge. They didn't have their huge advantage, which was obviously their mid game and their theory crafting and all that sort of stuff. So then you need a little bit of individual skill. You need a bit of star power. You need something like that where when the games get tough, you are going to you are going to have those games where you're complete below on Surge and you're going to be able to get a fifth out of nowhere. And that could be the difference between winning and not. And it just felt like on one end, they were just having too many of those scuff games. And on the other end, that when they did have those scuff games, it just wasn't enough. They weren't doing anything in the scuff games. In the past year and a half, the one game I remember was in Chapter 5, Season 2, where Cammy solo clutch from second zone to like, I can't remember what place it was, but
so good.
Yeah, he got Surge by himself, he got everything by himself, and he just single-handedly clutched down. In that Grands, I still believe he was the best player in that Grands, where they came third place, their last top 5 they got. And when I watched that, and in that Grands, and you see how they're playing, and you see how, and on top of the rumors we had about obviously Setty not grinding the game as much, which have been kind of bubbling for a long time, it just felt like every time they got into the Grands, no one was really, I don't know if afraid's the right word, because you're never afraid of Cammy and Setty, but they just didn't have that level of consistency anymore, and they couldn't save their games, and it just felt completely scuffed. And when we got into trios, that kind of just continued. They were still battle spawn, teams weren't scared of them, and obviously it transitioned into then when the games are scuffed, for example, when they're at box cards and they're not getting so much Surge and all this sort of stuff, again, same things. They're just getting low kill games, they're getting 12 with 0 kills, and it just means that you're just never going to place high in a leaderboard if this is the case.
Teddy, that's something we hear about a lot, especially when you look back at a lot of the best players in Fortnite history, a lot of the best teams we've had. Someone not grinding as much is always a conversation that ends up coming up. Are you surprised that even with those rumors lingering for quite a while now, like people have been saying this about saying, I know it's not always been true. I know, BloodX came out once the team split and said, look, Setty's been on the grind, etc., etc. Are you surprised that they lasted that long, even with those rumors? And how much do you feel like that really impacts a team's ability to stay together?
Yeah. First off, this is why that answer from Harry was why the comments are always, "Where's Harry? Where's Harry? Where's Harry?" That was like a super phenomenal answer. And it's broader than Fortnite, right? This is an actual life lesson. If you're in a highly competitive space where literally in this case hundreds if not thousands of people on the EU are trying to get better relative to the competition, if you stop grinding, if you stop practicing, if you stop studying the game as rigorously as you did before, it might not happen. The fall might not happen the first tournament or the second tournament or the third tournament, right? You're going to have insane muscle memory. You're going to know how to play the top lobbies, but it will deteriorate over time. So 100%, like you get what you put into all of these. You get what you put into all of these different things. I didn't follow whether Setty was grinding that closely or that carefully, but it does seem like, Harry put it perfectly, a team that had kind of this preparation and IQ advantage over the rest of the lobby, both Global's lobbies and EU lobbies, lost that over time as that strategy hit its cap, where there wasn't that many ways to outsmart an entire lobby, especially with more coaches emerging like Raz and still had BloodX. more IGL studying the game more intensely, whether it's Queasy or Vino, etc. That advantage, if that was their only advantage, right? Their kind of fundamentals, their teamwork. Reese, you said you didn't know who was doing what in the duo between them or later on in the trio. That's really good when they're good because they have a formlessness to them that they're really adaptable. And then when they're bad, it's whose fault is it that they're bad?
Right.
So I think it's really hard when the ground shifts below your feet, and this happens in way beyond Fortnite, right? This happens to basically everyone. Their time comes and the ground shifts below their feet, and unless they can figure out a way to adapt to it, these things come to an end.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, I think one of the things that I find interesting about the acquisition of skill in anything, right? Getting good at a single task, whatever that may be, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's life, wherever it is like you can practice a certain amount and you'll get to a high percentage of your possible capabilities in that, right? You can grind and grind and grind and grind past that, and you're going to get diminishing returns. It's going to be the curve is going to level off at some point as you get close to what you're capable of doing. And when you've had players who are playing for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, like especially pros, they're going to be very close to that top potential of their skill regardless. Now, if you see players who've been playing for that amount of time, they're professionals, they're clearly putting in the work and they're trying, and they're not capable of dropping 10, 15, 20 kill games every single game, for example, it's probably just not in them, right? They're just not going to be Peter bots. That like not everyone can be, no matter how much time they put in. So one of the things you got to think about when you're also adding to the conversation we had is Setty grinding. Just to use him as the example, it's like, okay, if he even put 100% effort as much as possible for the whole time, like would he be now capable to go toe to toe with the best in a kind of meta that now determines well, you need way more fighting to be involved in or not? And as a trio, I think the answer to that was no, not at all. Because if they were on the grind for a full amount of time, like they weren't able to continually keep up with the rest of the lobby in terms of like elims, and that's why they ended up continually getting so scuffed anyway.
Yeah, it's really interesting when I look at it. Look, it's over now. Like the story's ended now. I will say on good authority, I assumed these guys were going to split ages ago.
Years.
Genuinely years ago, right? And it was funny because it sort of became a running joke that like every year I thought they were going to split. And when I say I thought they were going to split, just it wasn't just for like anyway. And they didn't. And I used to always wonder about it and really wonder about the whys because I never got good answers as to why. It was just always like, still together, whatever. And I think a big part of it was when you look at what made them so great, right? And Harry, you touched on this, is the mastering of the fundamentals, right? You would be surprised just how many top level players who have had success over the years are lacking in like a lot of fundamentals of the game. And I think regardless of whether people weren't grinding or whether there wasn't as much firepower or the understanding of how to play the game and the fundamentals of what makes a good teammate were so strong that it makes replacing, that person really hard. Like it's really tough to replace that kind of person because somebody else might bring in firepower, but then you're getting pissed off because they don't know to like block your back in the top, and you're like what the hell are you doing? Like this is basic Fortnite, which is why I actually think it's super interesting that in the case of Cammy, right, they've picked up iDrop. Because I think iDrop is a player who you'd say, obviously, there's critiques of iDrop in terms of his ability to deliver in certain finals, when in good positions, etc., etc. But fundamentally, iDrop is incredibly strong. He's someone who's obviously worked with BloodX a lot, which I know that will probably help in that decision making, right? Because he has that understanding of the game. iDrop is someone who obviously really wants to learn and is always looking to improve. Like you said, Harry has that ability to take over as well. And so I think in the case of like that team with Cammy, Harry, and iDrop, it's not necessarily like for like in terms of the change, but there is still that strong foundation there that you had with Setty. I think it becomes interesting for Setty, whereas like, as much as I think Panzer and Yapko are great players and they've been better in recent times than the others, I don't know if they're gonna have that, right? So I think it's probably more of a difference change in terms of like the shape of the team for Setty. But I think one that's incredibly exciting because there is such a high upside there. So genuinely, I'm very excited for both these teams. I think, you know, it was funny that after Pro-Am, like, there was a lot of people, including myself, joking like, hey, man, Setty guy's clearly not the problem, man. This guy can still hit a bang. And I know it is just a Pro-Am, but I think both these players, it sort of reminds me of what I said a while ago on a much higher level of, like, you know, our Danish friends, right? Remember when, like, Trip, Refsgaard, and Anas tried to, like, cook up a team?
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, I love all three of you, right? But all three of you together isn't the play. Like, go and pick up 2 people each or whatever, and like, you will be fine. And I think they all did that. And for the most, I think 2 out of 3 of them made it to Grants, right, that season or something like that, right? So it's like, it's a similar situation with Cammy and Setty, where I think they're still both amazing and can do really good things. Splitting, I think, makes the most sense. And now that battle for, you know, I know they're going to try and not, like, BloodX was tweeting, no, it's not a rivalry, guys. Stop comparing them after the eval. No, we are comparing them. Every single tournament, we will be there seeing who's doing what, who's placing better, who makes it to globals. Because that's the fun of the game. That's what we get fun out of here in Fortnite competitive. So, yeah, really exciting time for both players, I think, to regain a bit of form and momentum and respect within the scene.
But a question. Maybe 2 questions. Two questions.
Let's go.
Prior to moving on. First one, is iDrop speaking Polish?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Okay. More of a better joke question. Real, actual question. Do you think either of these 2 teams, assuming they stick, have any potential to win this Grands?
For me personally, it feels way too early to say. However, my initial surface level thought is no. I think, like, I think when you look at what has led to these 2 players, in the case of like Cammy and Setty, finding success in the past, there's an element of stability and like being ahead of the curve of everyone. When you're forming a new team and, like, you know, not mid-season, but somewhat mid-season, right? You're playing catch up, like, you're learning about each other still. These guys aren't the type of guys that I think it's like they have a crazy honeymoon period, maybe like a Vidal Cooper Sphinx on NA a couple of seasons ago, where they're just winning a bunch of stuff or coming second. But like, that isn't the vibes I get from these 2 teams. I think it's more of a slow burner. I do think they can go globals, but winning the season, like, if they were to stick together, that's like a next year, looking forward to next year type of vibe rather than this season.
Cool. I agree for different reasons. I think they could get to a level which you could see in previous years, certain teams winning FNCS. I could see them coming 2nd and 3rd. I wouldn't. That wouldn't have shocked me too much. I just think the best team in EU right now is just quite far ahead, and I feel like they have the easiest Fortnite to play, and I feel like it's quite hard to topple them of Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. I think they have some of the easiest Fortnite they have to play, and also have the most consistent end game out of any team when they are stacked. It just looks like they just win every game. It just is. They just win every game when they're stacked. It's just insane. And I don't think we've seen domination like this on EU on height, and well, in a long time. It just feels like it's just so consistent. So that's my only reason why I would say no. But do I think they could get to a level which in other FNCSs could have maybe competed for an FNCS win? Yeah, sure. I think that, especially for Cammy, iDrop, and Chari, is like, I think they've been at levels before, like, where they could have won FNCSs. I think iDrop, even with Sky and Scroll, there's many times going into Grands where, like, they could win FNCS. Like, they are in contention to win FNCS here. So I see no reason why they can't get back to that level.
Are either of these teams the best Polish team?
No.
Oh,
Surely not. I mean, where did the
Combat Shark and Blaha came 6th?
No, not them. Again, noobs.
Demons picks and dumb. They haven't called to a finals this season.
There's been one final. I mean, and an eval.
There's been all the evals under Div Cup. They haven't called to a single one.
Yeah, but evals, I don't care about not calling
We
to
don't care about
evals.
evals. We don't care about evals.
I mean,
Like, I don't care about not calling to eval finals.
yeah.
No,
yeah.
but like 0. Like this is a team who literally like, but this is 0.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
when
but
they
like-
get in
There's
them,
a little
how do they play?
there's a little worry. I'd say more so to do with landing spot stuff because they keep changing landing spot and Thomas keeps changing landing spot, and it's just
Yeah.
that's a bigger problem.
But I feel like you could go back to like previous seasons, and there will be teams who barely were calling evals, and if not calling, and we probably still were predicting them like top 5s, top 10.
Yeah.
Like, I feel
No,
like Pink and them, I don't think we're calling mad evals before, right? And like we would still like be like, yeah, they're gonna call globals this season.
No,
you know? So
true.
it's like, you
It's
know,
quite
I'm
a
concerned, but I still
It
think
is,
they're
no,
the
I think
best.
you're right.
I still think they're the best
right.
Polish team, truly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's contentious. I think they're all around the similar level, I would say. I think, but the only thing is I'm getting back on the Comeback and Blaha trade after heats, after we all saw, oh wow, they're amazing, get 300 points in 5 games, and then just dudding in grand. So it's like
disgustingly dudded.
yeah, so I'm guessing if you're just going off grands, and yeah, of course, it's probably picks Dima Shundam. So, but I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of decent Polish traits. That you even have like a team like Giras, Dinas, and Dinas and Franek who are good. They're not on the same level, but they're definitely a team that
But they're
if they
good,
if they snuck into globals, I wouldn't be shocked. You know, I think we have
the
a lot of
Southwest
those.
Warriors.
So,
Exactly,
so you
yeah.
think? So do you guys think we're setted up for an interesting season?
It was coming at some point. Like it was coming at some point.
I was like
So,
moving the
respect.
chessboard around.
Respect for holding off. Respect for holding off. Look, Harry mentioned the best team in EU right now, Vanya, Pixie, Marius. They were phenomenal in last week's Div Cup. They won, only playing 5 games. They didn't even load into the last game. They won 3 of the 5 games they played. Just have looked unbelievable. And yeah, pretty much the best team right now. One thing for me that's really impressive, like you mentioned their height dominance, Harry. They've been a height team for quite some time now. But one of the biggest problems, you know, I used to see when I'd watch them is that although they were like really proactive and like pressuring people and like, you know, being like an aggressive height team, they were actually quite vulnerable to just like getting chopped a bunch. Like there was a lot of times where I'd watch them and it's like they're just getting chopped out of nowhere. Nobody even has any idea what's going on. And it does just feel like a lot of those problems they've just fixed, right? Like they just look almost impenetrable when they're up there. So this is a team that I think, yeah, most people will probably be predicting to win, you know, going into EU this season. Now, there is another team who's looked really exciting this season that I think a lot of people are going to start to put on their radars or on their lists for qualifying for globals. And that's Pink, Nebs, and Kira. Now, for the people who are listening who maybe don't know, our good friend, Coach Harry, has actually been working with Pink, Nebs, and Kira this season. And so there was no way we were going to let this episode go by without getting an interview with Coach Harry about
leak the strats.
with his team.
Yeah, I'll leak everything, actually. There we go.
Look, I want to say, first things first, that I actually want to say. I want to say a congratulations to you. Because for the longest time, I've been wanting to see you get an opportunity with a team with this level of talent, right? Like, you've worked with some great players. You know, a lot of people, it's not like as known the people you've worked with, right? Like, but you've worked with great players. That's not, you know, it's not you haven't. But I think this is probably like the highest caliber or highest profile level team you've worked with in quite some time. So one, congratulations, but how are you feeling about it? Like, are you feeling a bit more pressure there to deliver as a coach? Like, what's the, you know, like, what's that been like, bro?
No, it's good. It's good. I'm enjoying it a lot. I think they're great to work with. They're really hardworking, and they're, as you said, they're extremely talented. Like they just are. I think even when games are sometimes scuffed or things go wrong, they can clutch up in the most scuffed situations. They're just incredible players. But yeah, no, it's going good. It's obviously a process, of course, but no, things are going well. I'm looking forward to it.
This guy sounds already like a bloody football manager doing a press conference, like the most PR answers of all time.
Because I can't say, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much.
You know?
Yeah, you know, we like to be fundamentally sound and hope the athletes go our way. You know, I give great respect to the work ethic of the team.
You know, the lads kept fighting.
They're great lads.
Yeah.
They're great lads.
Yeah. The
Always
lads, they
get the
didn't
ball
give
in the
up.
back of the net. Yeah.
But no, it's been good fun. It's been good. I'm enjoying it.
That's good. No, that's good. Look, obviously, right, there is, you know, a lot going on in the world of Fortnite. From a team level on the Div Cups, right? We've seen obviously the evals. We have a couple more until we get into the actual FNCS season. Before we continue talking about that, I do want to quickly address something. Last week, I was, you know, we talked about Blitz Royale because it had just dropped. And I'd played a couple games and I was like, I don't get it. You know, it's just, I don't get it. I would like to say, I do get it now. I do get it. I'm not playing it, but I do get it. I played a couple more games after last week's episode. And I've looked at the player numbers. I've looked at the general community consensus from the casuals more so. I don't really know what comp people feel like about it. And I get it. People enjoying it. It's fun. It's quick. It's rapid. Like, it makes sense. It just makes sense. Like, it just makes sense.
It's fun. I loaded into it the first day to test it. And I was like, man, this is zero build.
That's how I felt.
I was flying, mate. I was zooming about with some of those medallions on the grapples. And I was hitting bangs. I was like, this is pretty fun, I'll be honest. If that had a build mode, that's in the
all these sweats.
Sweats just ruined Fortnite.
The mobile players get something. Why can't they just have something, guys?
So here's the thing, right? Like, good zero build players don't have many places to go right now because zero build ranked sucks. Zero build reload is good, but it's also like, it's not fun. This mode's good for them, like to practice like a mechanics, zero build mechanics, if that makes sense. And it is fun.
You should have seen the look on Harry's face when he said good zero build players.
Good.
I mean, it's comparative to the other. You can be good. It depends on you know what you're comparing yourself to, of course.
True.
Like,
You're a good zero build player, apparently.
I am dog shit. I'll be honest. Yeah,
mate, you're scoffing at good zero build players. Did you know they're good ballistic players?
I
got like a ballistic, bro. I got a YouTube recommended video, and it was like a guy dropping like a 40 bomb in ballistic, and there's like a community of like they're posting ballistic videos, like it's like Counter-Strike, you know, like if you're very locked into like Counter-Strike and Valorant, like they post those kinds of videos, but for ballistic, and I was like, damn, people like are like grinding this, like fair play.
Wait until you go down the rocket racing rabbit hole.
I've seen this. I've seen this on Instagram. On Instagram, bro, this guy would be like, "I'll give everyone else a lap lead," and then he'll race, and it's all the comments are just like, "What a nerd! What a fucking nerd!"
Rocket racing sweat.
So
he's insane. This one guy's insane.
Without giving away too much, because I'm going to be working on this for like the next week or something. I've just finished a video. It does include some rocket racing, right?
Brilliant.
And some of the people, even you just playing pubs, mate, are outstandingly good. And then I started to like go down the rabbit hole of like watching a couple of videos because I needed clips of good players, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching, man? I was like, this is unreal. It's one of those like racing games that it's like there is no chance you're gonna beat someone who's really good at it. It's like putting Peterbot in a 1v1 against a zero build player. It's like it's just not happening. It's just not happening.
Why are Epic so good at making incredibly high skill gap games?
Accidentally, yeah.
Like so completely. Well, no. At this point, I don't want to say accidentally. Like when we Fortnite, we all laugh and we're like, yeah, they made the highest skill gap game ever completely by accident. But now I'm at the point where no. Someone in the team is cooking. Like there's one guy who just knows, like he's cooking because this is ridiculous at this point.
You know, it sounds like
it's stuff like that for everything.
This sounds like the meme, you know, the meme where everyone's like enjoying themselves in the water, and down below there's like a skeleton in the water, like dead, like everyone's forgotten about. That's how it feels like ranked. Normal ranked right now is that it's dead and buried in the water. No one talks about it. No one cares about it anymore. Like I was looking at the numbers. It's like over 24 hours. Peak is 32,000 players. Like,
what for Battle Royale ranked?
Battle Royale ranked 32,000 players.
What?
In comparison to Blitz, let's just say Blitz 24-hour peak is 300,000. Like
oh my gosh.
That's one of those things where I'm like, if you're Epic, right, and they're moving stuff around in Blitz so often, you know, they've got weekly events, they're changing loot pools, like they're really trying to keep it interesting to keep people invested. Yet they're so down the middle, drawing the line that this is what rank should be. Fucking pubs. Just why? Just make it the comp loot pool and stuff. No one's playing it anyway. Like, just do it.
This is the reason why I feel like a lot of us who are like, we're casual comps, you know, we're people who play the game. We're not going to play loads of tournaments, but if there was a ranked mode which was fun to play, we'd play it. We'd all play it. We'd all play it
That's what's got me
like any other game.
Yeah,
like any other game. If you're good at a game and you want to just play something daily, which can be fun to play, you don't go look for third-party tournaments. You don't go. You play the ranked mode, and you have that progression. And I think we've talked about around. I've talked about ranked and arena since fucking chapter 2, and it gets me so angry that like how shit it is. But like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get how this, as you said, this is the line that's drawn. This is just, we're gonna be allowing this. We're not gonna test things. We're not gonna try new things. We're just gonna deal with it and just you can deal with the fucking just shit pubs.
Yeah, one of the things I also would recommend if you guys are looking for a playlist just to jump into for some quick action. Open your mic, open game chat, and just go into Pro Zone Wars. It's the funniest thing of all time, man. The people that are in Pro Zone Wars that are just filling randomly are hilarious. I've never seen so many shit talkers. I've never seen so many horrific players that are just nothing but shit talkers as well. It is unbelievably fun.
There you go. So that's how you're gonna spend your weekend if you're listening. Jump into some Pro Zone Wars. Okay, well, enough of that. Yeah, go play Blitz. Go stop playing rank so that they change it. And yeah,
let's start a protest against it.
Start a protest. Yeah,
go on strike from ranked.
I wonder if we could organize something like that. I wonder if there were like people would actually. I feel like it wouldn't work. It'd almost be like like the Vex Sports thing where everyone's like mass unfollowing Vex Sports, and then he like gained 7 million followers or something. Like then everybody would start playing ranked. All right, look, let's talk about NA Div Cup because we had an interesting result. I think in this season where obviously we've had the battle between Peterbot and Acorn's trios. I say Acorn's trio, I'll say Poyo's trios because that's what everyone wants to hear. Between Peterbot and Poyo's trio, the new trio that formed, or the new old trio that formed in Rapid, Canada, and Bolts came through and they won the Div Cup. They won 3 games, similar to what we saw in EU with Vanya and them. And quite frankly, I don't think a lot of people were expecting that Canada was going to come out and do that. I know we talked about them being probably the best team coming out of that, right? I know Teddy specifically actually was the one that called them out. I think Clutch posted the tweet on their FNtasia page. So shout out to Teddy for a great call.
Not a lot of people thought they'd be great, but some people thought they'd be
some people did, and some people being Teddy. Teddy, I'll come to you on this first then. One, what made them so great? And 2, are you even surprised? As much as you thought they would be great, are you even surprised by that result?
I wasn't super surprised because if you just think about the way the lobbies forming out, arguably the 2 best teams right now are canceling each other out. And it seems like they're going to be canceling each other out for the remainder of the season because neither of those players wants to destroy their off-spawn reps, so they're both going to destroy their off-spawn reps instead. And then Clicks, Higgs, and Yamzo, they're a great team, but I think in terms of them being a top dog, I don't think they're the scariest top dog that an NA lobby has ever had. No, and no offense to that trio. I love that trio, Yamzo, Canadian Ginger. So, always going to
your son,
rare breed. Yeah,
exactly. Always going to be rooting for that. But I thought Kanata, Rapid, and Bolts, they played incredibly. So first of all, like, is Rapid going to be the new height IGL, like the consistently go height IGL of NA? Because all their wins were like clinical high ground. All their wins also, they got Island, and they played Island super well, where they basically conditioned their next rotation around, like, all the teams went around Island, and then they had their next rotation was super free. Because of that, they made good plays off spawn when teams were looting too close into Crime City. It looks like they got a lot of zones and they got a lot of island spawns. So I guess you could say there was some luck, but they played it that tournament pretty perfectly, in my opinion.
Reese, as someone who plays tournaments, as someone who plays, with Destiny and Jesus in particular, you guys have been playing with each other for a while now, but you guys will sort of have on and off periods, right? Where you'll play a bit, not play as much. This is a team that were playing with each other, stopped playing with each other, now playing again. Is there a second or third honeymoon? Like, can you reactivate the honeymoon period? Is this just a honeymoon period for this team, or are they going to be the top dogs here?
Like, I think it just all depends on the breakup of the previous team, right? Like, where were you when you got back with this? Like, were you just desperate? You just needed someone? Like, if that was the case, then the honeymoon period, are you really that excited about it? Probably not. But if it's just like it had to be, we had to play together again, then then the success could be there. But it's hard to say. I'll be honest though, looking at the match history, I do wonder if like we would be talking about this if like Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual just were on con off spawn, because you look at even just mathematically the points. They had 3 games where they got basically no points, and had they just gotten the same amount of points in the other games, they just would have won the tournament.
For sure. I mean, for sure.
When you're dropping 15 bombs, yeah,
exactly. It's like, and obviously, if it was any other team, I'd be like, what a stupid analysis to make. Like, what if they just didn't die off spawn 3 games in a row? They would have won. But like, when it's this team, it's like, I feel like I could say that. I think this is just like another one of those teams that'll be, top 2, top 3 contender potentially. But honestly, when it comes to NA, I'm still just going to root for the 2 biggest teams. And in Grands, are they going to con each other in Grands still? We'll see.
I find it interesting you guys are calling them the 2 biggest teams, because naturally they're the 2 FNCS winners of this year from NA. And I think on paper, I've probably been one of the biggest advocates of it, that I do think on paper they're the 2 biggest and best teams. But when you look at the form of Clix, Higgs, and Yomzo, I think there's a large portion of our audience that will be listening and sort of thinking you guys are maybe being a bit harsh and saying that, if anything, when you go by recent results, and not just super recent, like the past season, of results, the second biggest team would have to be Clix, Higgs, and Yomzo. There was a clip recently, I think, of Peterbot's highlighting those guys as like, this is their window. Like, if they don't win an FNCS this season, like, it's never happening for these guys, because this is the best chance they got.
You never know, though, when Peterbot says stuff like that, if he's trying to fuck with Clix or if
he's absolutely trying to.
Yeah, he's always trying to do that.
I don't think there's ever been a time where he hasn't been trying to fuck with Clix, to be fair. But like, even looking through the bullshit, like, what you saying is true. Like, this is the time for them, right? Before this result with Canada, that's what the narrative in NA was. It was like, well, now it's just a wide open, road for Clix and them to win every tournament and go through and win FNCS if they stay conning in Grands.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to ever. I guess I would be actually. I probably agree with you then actually in putting them second, right? Looking at, I guess, how like especially last season, how Poyo's team ended up doing in Grands comparatively, and how it was really close between Clix's team and them. Obviously, they definitely looked like the second best team there as well. But I don't know. I just feel like anytime you just have this Peterbot team, it's like everyone else. I'm just like, it's just.
It almost doesn't matter.
They're just not the best.
Yeah.
They're just not the best, man.
They don't move you as much.
They don't, and it's such shit analysis. But I don't care, because I'm like, this is the team who's doing the crazy stuff that everyone's there to watch, and it's cool to see other teams like fight for that and whatnot. But like, even if we saw the Clix win this season, everyone's just going to say, well, Peterbot was conned off spawn.
For sure. If Peterbot is not winning, you need these crazy circumstances to create the Peterbot is not winning.
Yeah.
Even in season 1, it was Rachel and Cold were selling. That was the reason why Peterbot didn't win. Like, it wasn't even. That was the story. Yeah. It wasn't.
And Agers hit like a new level that he had never hit in his 5
5
years playing Fortnite.
Yeah, it's never just they just lost. It's always this happened, but this happened. It's just like, no, sometimes. But I do agree. I think it's a weird conversation in NA, because obviously, if we're just going off last season, it should be, if you have 2 Titans fighting against each other like last season, literally going blow for blow until final game, and then you get into this season, one of them literally is playing half the games on average, But then obviously, Click should just win. If they were that dominant, they should just go and win. And I still think they will. And you see a lot of the debates. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, a lot of the debates between surge trading. But I think when it gets to Grands, everyone's going to be surge trading. And I think Clicks will go back to surge trading again. And I think we'll just get back there. And I think that will help them become a lot more consistent. Because obviously, if you go back to season before, they landed Lone Wolf, traded with Flooded Frogs, able to get surge from there with a bunch of spare heals. Set up for the same way in Supernova. Landing next to Flooded Frogs, can trade with Flooded Frogs, have a bunch of spare heals from all the A chests and S chests and all that. Like, it's set up in the same way to have the same sort of performance, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we, again, see them just make every endgame and have consistent performances. However, it's Rapid in a dash meta. Now, if we're going back to last time Rapid was in a dash meta, he was one of the best IGLs, and everyone's like, oh, this is the next IGL that everyone wants to play with. And then as soon as dashes went, he got a bit worse. And obviously when they played together, Canada was just slating him on the stream. He was literally calling him like the worst IGL, all of this. And now Dashes are back. They're winning 3 games. They're getting hype for free. I mean,
and there's no great hype team in NA, especially if Acorn and Peterbot are neutralizing each other.
Exactly.
Like this conversation, to Reese's point, this conversation doesn't exist if the the best team and the second or third best team, depending on how you rank them, aren't completely neutralizing each other. But I think we've never seen Clicks, Higgs, and Iamzo as the true undisputed favorites. Like last season was an amazing season, great story, but we've never seen them as favorites and having to kind of wear that belt for an entire season. And I do think there are a lot of other good teams in NA that can construct winning formulas. And we saw it in this past Divisional Cup, right? Which is there's no team contesting height significantly. So if Rapid becomes like the Diet Queasy for the region, there's something there. Bolts, has gotten better with each passing season. And I think this could be his kind of peak season as a fragger. And then Kanada's Kanada, right? Like he's, until this year, basically top 5 in every FNCS for 6 years.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously not that long ago, the trio of Rapid, Poyo, and Bolts looked like the best trio in the region / second best, right? Obviously, they're going up against whatever team Peterbot was on that week. And obviously, Poyo is an upgrade on Canada, but like Canada playing at his best is still one of the best players in the region. And so like, you'd like to hope that if all 3 of those players can get to their best form, that this team could make significant waves in terms of like we have a clear understanding of the 3 best teams in the region in NA, right? Like this team's upside should be that they are a team that is like making us go, oh, are they actually third or second?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that should be the level that like these guys are playing at their best. Which if they can continue, what they did like this week, then who knows? Maybe that's where they'll get back to. Any more thoughts on what we saw in the world of competitive the past week? Before I got some questions, but any more thoughts? Anything interesting that caught your eye?
I mean, I kind of, because we talked about it a little bit, but I don't think we talked about it enough about going into the season in EU, as in Vanya, Pixie, and Maris, and like who is the next teams in contention? Because we talked there about who's in contention for NA going into it. Like in EU, who is in contention? Who are the teams you're looking at? And you're thinking about who's going to be in contention, or is it just a 1-horse race at this point, and whoever can catch up, like whoever finishes second, third, good for them?
I think we are in a scenario very similar to literally this time last year in EU, where it was similar, where everybody was going, Vico Flix, you're going to win Major 3. This is their season to win. I think we're in a very similar situation.
If things were going to go wrong for Vanya, Pixie, Maris, what do you think it would be?
Ooh.
I was going to make an ancient Rome joke, but I'll spare the I'll spare the podcast audience.
I'm not sure. Like outside of like just like random stuff, like obviously, you look back at like literally just last season, right? Like they were almost cons, like they were con for like a couple games at the start of the grands, and then like the team was like, actually, no, we're not conning you, like just a joke. Outside of like just random stuff like that, like I don't know, like this team, should just be competing for first this season.
I don't know. Mongrel looks pretty good.
I guess like
Mongrel-
the biggest, yeah, Mongrel. Hey,
If they're on
Mongrel-
con, they're good.
Mongrel's
that-
been having his best form since like chapter
sure.
2. So
Look, they might be 15-1 down off spawn, but like they've got something. They got it if they're on con.
they got something there. There's something definitely there.
Do you think Swizzy will come back and then that team will lock in and all of a sudden that's just a good team? Because that's because he's basically not playing anything until FNCS this season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
think-
that's what I was gonna say. I'd say maybe like it like just having other good height teams start to like kick off, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we know there was always a narrative of like when Queasy was in the game, they struggled with height. Like earlier this year, they sort of like dealt with those problems. Like it wasn't as big of a deal for them last season when they won. But you know, if we were to assume that like Queasy, Swizzy, Mustache can like lock in and like situate themselves and like actually stop them from having height as much, then maybe there's room for like some team, not necessarily like Queasy team, but some other team to like sneak through and almost be more consistent than them.
Mhm.
But I think they just have to be the favorites this season.
I think there's one team no one's talking about, and I feel like they're just going under the radar for underperforming at the moment, and it's Vino, Vico, Felixu. Like, I feel like at this moment in time, you look at their performances and you look at how they play in finals, they got their win, and apart from that, their best placement was 14th in the other 5 games. They're landing a spot which I don't know if it's their type of landing spot. I know they're trying to claim it for globals, that whole thing, but it's like, I don't know if this is their type of spot. But it feels like they're underperforming to what everyone would expect as FNCS winners in season 1, and obviously were conned and had to do some messy things in season 2. It's no one's really saying anything about them. No one's talking about them.
I think so. Do you think that's because they like? Are you bringing them up because you think they are the potential contender to Vanya, or like are you?
I'm just
also
interested in your thoughts.
heading
I'm
to them?
interested.
Oh,
I'm interested in your guys' thoughts on them. Like, this is just now, like, obviously they're having huge problems, things aren't going right, or do you think this is just they're trying to figure things out and they'll be fine by grands?
last season when they did the whole not playing with each other thing, we had the conversation on here about how there's a good chance they go into next season and the vibes are just even worse than what they already were.
Yeah.
I would harbor the guess that that is the case. And so in a season where you're landing at a spot, right, like you mentioned, where maybe it's not the kind of spot you'd expect from them on paper, they're clearly having to learn and figure things out. And Veno's been quite like open about that on our podcast and on his stream about how like he spent a lot of time trying to like figure out the way these guys should be playing. And I think they've had problems figuring that out. And I think we're just seeing a continuation of that. Like, I think they've landed on what they're going to do this season, obviously landing boxcars. And I think there's just like things that they need to iron out. Like, I think come grands, like they should be a contender. But like, I think right now there's just like small little individual problems that go wrong. Like anytime I see anything from them, it's like not anything fundamentally is wrong. They're just like small individual mistakes that probably come from just, you know, either bad communication, bad understanding, bad trust, whatever, like whatever it is, like there's a disconnect there that I think is a continuation of just a general trend we've seen from them the past season or so.
And it's a shame because, like, you know, first season they were insane. And, you know, they have the potential. You sit and ask the question, is this going to be the Peterbot team of EU? They're just going to start dominating. They're incredibly scary to fight. And they have the absolute potential to do that. But it's almost just sad. I was like, I want to see them do that. You know, I want to see them pop off and go crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. I think the problem, and I'm sure Veno will listen to this and he'll DM me like, no, I don't agree. But I think the biggest problem is they started to lean away from that.
Yeah.
You know, like I think, and I understand it from you know, their POV of like, they probably, especially in EU with like the way these lobbies play out in grands, like you don't want to just rely on being the team that's just fighting everybody. Like that is hard. I think that's part of why, you know, even after the success Vico and Flixie had last year, that's part of why I think they wanted Veno, because they wanted someone that could like bring that like understanding of like taking away risks from the game, taking away like potential randomness. But at a certain point, man, when you got that much talent, like just optimize for that and figure out the rest later.
Just get in the
and
box.
and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But like, at least you like utilize the tools in the best way.
All right, Harry's question though.
moment.
Harry's question was what could go wrong with Vanya's team to make them all win.
What do you think?
Well, I think we've just discussed it. You just absolutely figured it out. Vico's team, and Venom's team, they've been hunting around the map for some random drop spots and random play style didn't work, but they had it all along. They had it since season 1. They had the Flooded Frogs win. Yeah. Season 2, Vanya had the Flooded Frogs win. Season 3, we're in now here. That Flooded Frogs is looking awfully good, isn't it?
Is this landing spot just OP? Is this what you're saying? Is this landing spot just so OP?
Is it that's the only reason teams have won from there. These two teams are just stinky if they don't go there. That's it. But the team, the spot is what wins FNCS. That's what we've known all along.
True.
Interesting.
There you go.
A question for you, Harry. I'm gonna come right back to you because I like this line of questioning here. Your question of like, who are the other teams? Who are the people who why are we not talking more about Malibuca, Ping, and Wox? They just had like one of the best day ones we've seen in the Grands, like in a long time. We all just assumed they were going to win FNCS. It didn't look like anything was going to stop them outside of just someone full grief and landing on them, which kind of happened. Why aren't they a team now that everyone's like, oh yeah, this is just the obvious team who we should expect to win going into Grands?
It is true because, as you said, they were, if they were on con for the rest of the Grands, they probably do just win it. And then we're not even talking about Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, right? They're probably not even in a conversation. But I don't know, because it's the same as last season where, like, it could generally just be the case that they don't win. They're not winning Div Cups and they're not winning evals, but they're playing consistently decent. Obviously, in Div Cup, they were contested, so a little bit different there. But then they also don't stream, and they're also not big faces, and they're also not big names. Like, obviously, Malibuca is a big name, but they're not, like, constantly creating content and clips and all that sort of stuff so people just see it. It's like, if you're not fully locked in and watching their games and seeing what they're doing, you're not going to know if they're a contender or not. You're just going to look at the leaderboard, then look what's on Twitter. Those are kind of the two things you do, right? So I think that could be part of the problem. But yeah, I mean, this season is set up for them. Again, they're landing the best landing spot on the map on paper, which obviously Peter Barter and Akon are contesting over, and they have it completely uncontested. The only teams that landing there was, I can't remember who they even got contested by. It was by some like lower level EU team, like a Heats level team or lower. It's like, so coming into Grands, they're probably going to be uncontested at the best spot with the medallion, which it's obviously overpowered. We all know that medallion where you can just get guaranteed shield is overpowered. And yeah, no, you are right. Because even whilst we were talking about that, it didn't even pop into my mind once about Malibuca. Not even 1 second. It's like, should they be in contention? But 100% they should be in the conversation.
Do you think a spot that good can stay uncontested for an entire Grands? Like, maybe landing on them for one game like Vino did, because I think Vino's team won the first game that he landed. They landed on Malibuca at Lone Wolf. Yeah. So I could see someone trying that. But even going back to Stark Industry, Mongrel, Mitra, and Taysen got pushed off of that in game 9 of Grands, and then they were just kind of shambles holding on, hoping they didn't get caught. Like, do you think a drop spot that good can actually be left fully unconned unless you're like the true aura of Peterbot and, the true aura of past Peterbot, I should say now, because he doesn't even have the aura to get it unconned.
He has too much ego. He has too much ego.
Well, we say that, and you're right. He does have too much ego. And compared to, I don't want to, like, without getting into like a comparative thing of like the drop spots, what's better than what, but like when you actually look at it, Malibuca's like landed at like one of the best spots every season for like the past 9 seasons, and has been mostly uncon every single Grands where he's landing at these insane spots. A lot of those seasons we thought he would be conned, right? You look back at like Grim Gate season where like we all thought, Trip and Ferox or whatever was gonna give them problems, and like it just never happened that way. Last season, last year when they were landing at Red Line, and it was like they're just fine. Like, whether they're landing that fence, or I don't know. Like, I feel like he just gets a lot of these spots just uncon anyway, a lot of the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did just stay uncon.
Yeah, I'm It is interesting though, because I was before we started the podcast, I was just thinking like in my head, like because that question about what could go wrong for Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, and I think to me there's only one thing, which is obviously the games where they're scuffed. If you go back to their grands and you go back to even the Div Cup they won, the games they're scuffed, they just get like 12th with 0 kills, 13th, 14th, like it's just full 0-point games. But because of the points format, the pop-off games, and P-Bot's talked about this a lot, is like it doesn't matter if you win games with 15 kills, you can have a couple of dud games in there, but if you're winning games in this format when getting 120 points for a game, you need like 5 or 6 of those and you win the grands. So it's like at the end of the day, it's like if your good games are so good, it doesn't matter if your scuff games sometimes aren't as good. Obviously, they should also be as well. But I was thinking there was just no one in contention, but yeah, Malabuka should 100% be in the conversation. I think the only worry is as you said, he always has the best spot. People used to, for a long time when he played Mersash, people were like, oh, he's going to win at the best spot. And he'd always come top 5, somewhere in the top 5. And it would be like, it's a good placement, but with the context, it's not very good.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Let us know in the comment section below. Who do you think are the main contenders on both regions to win? I think NA is probably a bit easier to answer than on EU this season. But interesting nonetheless. We obviously... I don't know what I'm saying. Let's just end the podcast. Yeah, just bye. Just,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, I was
We're not
gonna
going to
do
talk
like a
about the
whole
face
like,
of EU.
yeah, like I was gonna do like a whole thing, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just ending the podcast, man.
I thought we were going to do the GOAT debate and face of EU.
We said GOAT debate. We said 5-hour GOAT debate app if Miro calls for globals. That was the stipulation.
And then NA versus EU.
We'll
I
do
thought we were
an
gonna
NA
play the
versus EU. We'll do a 10-hour NA versus EU debate. If what should be the stipulation for that one?
Who wins globals?
If a
Mongrel
small
wins
region team
globals.
wins globals.
If Mongrel wins globals,
Yeah.
we will do a 12-hour NA versus EU debate. Guaranteed. Live, yeah, the whole
Live.
12 hours live.
An
We'll have
E versus
guests,
NA
have
subathon.
everything.
We'll do an E versus NA. It can go on for 48 hours. Look, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Bloody hell. All right, man. Thanks for listening, man.
Yeah.
just thanks for listening. And yeah, we'll see you all tomorrow. So, I don't know. We'll see you at some point.
Peace.
Goodbye.
Definitely not tomorrow.
Goodbye.